All right, so I'm only going to say these things once. Number one, this is not Bears content. There will be specific Bears draft episodes, but this is draft content. So I will not be taking questions about Bears needs and draft and all that. Save it for a different episode for all my fellow Bears fans. Secondly, this content, the channel is about the prospects. It's not about predicting who's going where or what team's going to do what. This is about the prospects. I don't do mock drafts. I don't do any of those things. I simply talk about what prospects we have for this draft. So that's how that's going to go. Again, any questions relating to stuff other than that is going to be removed or ignored. So there we go. All right, so with that being said, we're going to go into the offensive tackles, first group of the draft, as it usually is. Couple things, going to talk a little bit about the position as far as my philosophy and everything. Then we're going to talk about the top players. We'll look at the first rounders because there's a number of them this year. And then, we'll go to the real grade, and we'll be doing the Buffalo Bills today, looking at the 2017 draft. So as far as offensive tackle, a little bit different than the rest of the interior line as far as what I tend to look for. But overall, when you're talking about offensive linemen, I do gradable traits, and you'll be able to look at those. And for offensive linemen has always been pass blocking, run blocking. And I grade that 1 through 5, 5 being the highest, of course. So traditionally, that's what I've done. This year, I've added motor, and motor has also been on defensive linemen and linebackers for a long time. But I decided to add that because I do think that component is important to offensive line play. And so those will be the 3 gradable traits that you'll see. But as far as the rest of the report, it still goes through the different aspects that make up their pass blocking and their run blocking. Their motor is just really the attitude and, their enthusiasm and the way they get after it, which I do think is big for offensive linemen because, anything in football, effort can go a long way. So added that this year. Now, some of the things, just when I start looking at an offensive tackle that I want to notice, the first and foremost is going to be the pass set. I want to see how do they pass protect. And so I will say that overall, of course, I think it goes without saying, this is one of the best offensive line classes that we had in a long, long time. And I've mentioned it before in my first impressions, if you want to check that out. But on top of that, I'm glad to see a return to some traditional form. And every year I talk about trends and different things that I see in the NFL or in the college game. And I see a return to the traditional techniques. Not everybody is back to it, but what you saw was, and with spread coming in, a lot of people went to this just really shuffle pass set where the lineman just shuffles backwards, kind of like they're playing basketball or something or trying to backpedal. And it's not conducive to pass blocking at all. But the passes were so quick, and, a lot of the concepts they did were all horizontal that it just made sense for them because they didn't have to teach linemen to be as good as they could be because they didn't need as much time, which, of course, why you have so many linemen that struggle in the NFL. But anyway, this time around, this year, I really see a return to the traditional techniques of a kick slide and a professional, pass protection set. And so that's talking about post leg, that's talking about kick leg, and all those things that we've come to know from offensive linemen for a while. And so that was really encouraging to see that offensive linemen or offensive line coaches or schools in general are reinvesting and going back to teaching those tools. And I don't think it's a coincidence you got a lot better linemen this year because of that. So anyway, that's the first thing I'm looking at. I'm looking at how do they pass that. And then from there, that's going to tell me a lot about a player, because if you got a guy that does not know how to do a professional pass set, that might be a learning curve that you're going to have to incur if you draft them. Number two, that's going to tell me what they might struggle with. What they tend to struggle with if they have a shuffle pass set is they're going to struggle with bull rushes, because they shuffle backwards. They're on their toes, and they don't really have the balance and the weight transfer to absorb contact. And so a lot of times you get guys falling over when they shuffle back and they're not in the proper pass set, because they're not balanced, top to bottom, and they can't absorb the contact. But the guys that can absorb it without falling over or getting destroyed, then they got some natural core strength, they got some natural balance, and they got some natural sturdiness to them. And so that's something you want to look at. But that's one of the things. Then I tend to look at how much their attitude is. That's one of the first things I'll look at. Are they just kind of passively blocking? Are they really getting after somebody? Do they give up when the play's away from them? Do they continue through the whistle? Are they nasty? Are they finishing blocks? Are they that tough, rugged lineman? That attitude matters, as I said. So that's one of the second things I look at. And then it's just a combination of looking at their feet. How well do they move in space? Like any player almost on the field, you want to see what type of athlete they are. How well can they cover ground? How well can they move laterally? It tends to be with bigger guys, they'll be faster moving forward because you get your weight going and momentum. But you want to see these bigger guys, how well do they move laterally, left to right. And that kind of helps you know what athlete they are as well. And from that, it kind of gets more technical. So then we're talking about as far as a pass protector, what are you losing at? What a lot of times with draft, we talk about how do you win, and offensive tackle play is kind of more how do you lose? What's one of your weaknesses, or do you not have a lot? That's something you want to see. So you want to see, does this guy have trouble with quicker guys? Does this guy have trouble with power rushers? Does this person have trouble with speed to power? Do they recover well? That's one of the things I like to look at first, because there's some guys that with the initial punch, they can really shut a guy down, but then they hit a second move, a spin, a counter, a swim, and the lineman just stops. It's like, oh, it's over. I did my job, and the second move, they just let it go. Which is why I always say with defensive linemen, effort is one of the biggest things when it comes to sacks, as much as people don't realize that. Because linemen a lot of time give up. And so you want to see not only do they give up, but do they have the speed to recover? You can recover a block and chase it down and still get in the way, but it just depends on your athletic ability. So I like to see that too. What type of athleticism we talking about, what type of protection. Then from there, it's a lot about the hands. I want to see where the hands are. Are your hands within the chest plate where they should be, nice and tight? Or are they wide, grabbing the shoulders? Are you hugging defenders? How well are you placing your hands, not only in pass pro, but in the run game as well? And then we talk about sort protection. So it's one of the phrases I use. Some people call it different things, but it's just simply, it's not man-to-man protection. It's more of a zone protection. So when you see stunts and twists and you're supposed to pass it off to the next guy, how well are they aware of it? Do they know that a guy's slanting in because another guy's looping around? Are they looking for it? Are they communicating with their teammates? Are they quick enough to initially block one guy and then switch and pick up the next guy? All those different things that come with sort protection I want to know about. And from there, I kind of move towards the run game as well. What type of stuff are they asking them to do as a blocker? And then, of course, how well they do it. But mostly you're looking at their ability to drive block. And a lot of schemes don't require linemen to drive block, especially in spread. It's turned in the last 3 years with power spread. But A lot of linemen aren't as good as drive blocking, especially tackles, as they used to be. But you want to see, do they got the ability to move people off the ball, drive their legs, and give people some space? Or are they more passive and they just like to get in the way? And then I look at double team technique. How well do they double team? As far as a down blocker, are you really creating separation off the line? Are you maintaining the first level with your partner before you climb up? How well do you climb to the second level? Are your angles good? Do you know when to let go to first level? All those things. So your combo double team technique and what type of blocker you are in space. So again, you got some guys that when they meet a linebacker or a safety, they can wipe them out, but they might not be athletic enough to get to that player most of the time. And you got some guys that just have bad angles, and so they approach it at the wrong way, and the defender runs around them. You got some guys that are slow, limited range, but you got some guys that are really quick and really good in space. So all those things go into consideration. So that's a little bit about all of the stuff you look at offensive tackle. Now, let's just dive into some of these players. So we got Andrew Thomas. I knew I was going to say that. Andrew Thomas from Georgia, 6'5", 320. One of the top guys. I really, 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 really like Andrew Thomas. For me, I think he has that build. And again, you'll see throughout this draft, there's a lot more of these traditional builds because there was a time, especially when spread got big, that tackles barely wanted to be over 300. And so you got a moment in time where tackles really were treading on the cusp of 300. And it was just like, well, they don't have the power that they used to. But now we see these guys that are big. I think we've always had tall guys, but we see some really tall guys. We see a lot of basketball players that are starting to go to football and realizing they can make money there. But then you got guys that are long and heavier, but they got longer arms and stuff so they can play the game. So anyway, Thomas, 6'5", 320. I think he's really well built for left tackle. Also play right tackle, but I think he definitely has the athletic ability to be a left tackle. The thing I like about him is that he does have a pretty good attitude when it comes to blocking. It's not that he's not like the nastiest dude, but he's definitely not passive. And he will get after people on blocks and he'll go at defenders. So I really, really like that about him. I really like the technique that he's coached with. You can tell Georgia has a very pro-style philosophy when it comes to the pass protection. The kick slide he has is great. He got a good post. I think he works. I wouldn't say works well, but he knows how to handle speed where it's not going to absolutely destroy him. I think he still has to get a little better. He'll need some help with that. That might be one of his weaknesses, but it's not like where he has no chance. So I like that. And then, of course, he deals with power very well. I like his anchor. I like his extension. I like his feet. He can move his feet really well, and he's not afraid to move his feet. There's some players that just really are afraid to keep moving. It's not even afraid. They don't move their feet well. And so they stick on a block and somebody goes the other way and they get lost. So I don't like that. But I think for 6'5", Andrew plays low. He plays with good leverage. I like him in space. I like him in double teams. I think Georgia, as far as running and throwing the ball, is very translatable to what you'll see in the NFL. So I think he just has really good overall technique about him. And so I think he's balanced the most out of probably any of these guys. And so I really enjoyed that. But I like his IQ and everything. Hard worker, good kid. So I liked everything he put on tape this year. And he's definitely had those years as a starter. I think he's one of the top prospects for me. Uh, then we got Jedrick Wills Jr. out of Alabama, 6'5", 320 as well. His build is not exactly the same as Thomas, but similar. So he's a right tackle. Now, the thing with Wills is that I think a lot of people like him, and I understand the potential there. My one big turnoff with him is that his motor's not there. He gives up on plays extremely quickly. Like if it's not going his way, or like the ball's going to the opposite side, he's done. And sometimes when the ball is to his side, he's done a little too quick. But you're talking about power. This is the guy. The man has extremely strong hands. He has a strong anchor. He can absorb the contact very easily. He's a bully on the line, but he's not a super athlete. And again, his motor is just really cold. So I think he's an average athlete at best. But as far as like an in the booth type guy, you can't argue with him. Like he's going to get movement on the line in a power scheme, a zone scheme. It doesn't matter. He's going to get some movement there. And I think as a pass blocker, he's pretty good as well. It's not that he's bad at all. I do think he leans on his strength a little too much and probably could have better, not better awareness, but better technique. But at the same time, like it's not too many guys that give him a whole lot of issues when it comes to hand-to-hand combat. But the thing is, of course, you got explosive speed that will test his limits on the tackle spot. But other than that, the college game didn't give him a whole bunch to struggle with on that end. And so that's going to be one thing to see if they can coach that and get that fire going. Like you can't really coach nasty. You can't coach effort. Like I think he's nasty as a blocker, but effort, he's got to bring that. So hopefully they get the best out of him. But again, Alabama, very pro style, very pro technique savvy. I think he definitely understands leverage. He has a good IQ about him. But the thing that holds me back with him again is that motor. All right, so we're going to jump down to the recent additions, and that's Tristan. I don't even know pronounce. I won't say Wirfs. From Iowa, 6'5", 322. So this is a big dude, really wide body, really big dude. And the thing about him is that he's very much looked at as the top blocker right now. But I can't say that for me that's the case. I don't think he's my top tackle at all. But he is, I think, a very good tackle. The thing with him is he lacks technique. For an Iowa guy, he lacks technique, which was kind of interesting to see. Like he uses a little bit different pass sets, but he shuffled pass sets more than I expected him to. Now, the thing is, he's strong and big enough to where even though he's shuffling and he takes contact, he's not getting destroyed, but he could be a lot better. And he can't get a lot of depth on his pass protection because he's not kick sliding. And so speed is going to be a thing that threatens him or has threatened him in Iowa. And so there's a little bit of coaching curve there. Now the run, like this dude's nasty. This is one of the nastiest guys in the group. So I don't have a problem with that. He definitely is going to get after it in the run game and all that stuff. But in the pass game, I think that's where you're going to really have to look at his tools and try to build those up. But the physical part, I really like what he can do for you in the run game right away. But I need him to be lower for 6'5", and that might be generous because he doesn't look super long. But for 6'5", I need him to be a little lower. There are some guys that can get lower than him, and he plays standing up when it comes to the pass game, and when it comes to the run game, he can get low, but he could get lower. And the problem is that leverage and that lack of hand placement, it messes his run game up a lot because he's a hugger. He's a mauler. He likes to hug and wrap people up. And I want him to get his hands in the frame and drive more than it is just kind of being a bully. And so you got to worry about holding calls with him as far as he's constituted right now, because he does not get his hands in the right place that often. And so I want to see him do better with that in the run game. But again, if he gets to the second level, good night for a linebacker, good night for a safety. If you want to come, bull rush him, power rush him, he's got a good anchor. Like it'll be a fight. But more seasoned pass rushers are going to give him issues. And so I'd like to see his overall technique get a little cleaned up. But as far as what people talking about as a physical freak, yeah, I mean, he's a big, nasty dude, and he's strong. He's very strong. So I see some people talking about possibly guard. It does feel a little like Brandon Sheriff, but I don't think they're the same type of guy. It might be the same type of situation, but I don't think they're the same type of blocker. I do think he has a lot of length in his arms, and so that extension will help him, and I think he can play right tackle. But yeah, I think if anything, you could start him off at guard, but eventually I think you just got to work on some of his tools, which is somewhat what we said about Sheriff. His was more of an athletic concern, but as we saw, Sheriff never really left that guard spot. So then Austin Jackson from USC, 6'6", 310. Now, he looks the part. This is the guy that absolutely looks like the prototypical left tackle that you want. Very long arms, nice, long, lean frame, much like Thomas, but probably a little longer. And so it looks good, and he's got a good anchor for a left tackle. Now, there's two issues. One's not really his fault. USC, the way they ran and how much they ran was difficult to evaluate Jackson as a run blocker, because a lot of times they just had him seal the edge. Like, he wasn't drive blocking. He wasn't double teaming up. Like, he really was just sealing the edge, like, getting in the way. And so it's hard to evaluate him on that front. The other problem with him is that his technique isn't great. Similar to Worth's as well. I think as much as it's a pro-style type offense, I would like to see him with some better offensive line tools. And so his pass set is definitely one of them. His pass set sets up a couple issues, but I think unlike some of these other guys, he shuffles pass sets, but he keeps his chest protected pretty well. And so he's not getting into these bull rush beefs like some of these other people. Keeps his chest protected, gets his hands in a good place. But outside of that, I don't know much about him in the run. And what I've seen from him overall, he's pretty passive. He doesn't have like a hard, heavy hand like punch. He isn't a nasty dude as far as moving people off the ball. So I would venture to say he's much more pass protector than he is run blocker. And that's fine. I don't think he's a great athlete either. And one of his big issues is he stops his feet. He stops his feet cold. And so when you're talking about sword protection and helping switch off, he does not move. Like, he can move, but he just doesn't. He kind of just sits there. And I'm like, move your feet, man. Like, get over there and help out. Like, if a blocker or if a defender's countering back or going left, right, like, move your feet. And I do think he has the feet to do it, but he just really, his feet go dead on contact. And so that really hurts him. But again, like I said, his anchor's really good, which shows that he has a lot of strength. And so I think most of Jackson's game is going to be based on potential as far as his stock. And so he can definitely get up there. He's definitely like what you would want as a piece of clay. Probably would have did better with another year in school as a 2-year starter. But he's coming out, and I think he'll be very much coveted lineman that you could really build on for the future. But he's probably going to struggle a little bit in the meantime. All right, so there was, let's see. There's also, I forgot his first name. Let me see. The TCU tackle is Lucas Nyang, I believe. 6'7", 328. Massive dude. Massive. This is one of my favorite guys. One full season as a starter. The issue is he's coming off an injury and he's had some injury in his history. So that's something that a lot of people are looking at and talking about. But for some people, they believe this is probably one of the best tackles. And I've only was able to see one game, so I can't really chime in as far as the best. But I loved watching that one game. And you talk about size and athleticism, like ability to move. And you talk about a nasty attitude. You talk about the motor. The guy gets after it. And he's a big dude. And so I'm absolutely intrigued by him. I think he has the build. I think he has the demeanor. I think he has the technique and tools. I definitely want to see more games if I can, but as of now, that one game showed me a whole lot, and I was really excited about it. So there's still talk of him possibly in the first round, but we'll see. And then I guess I'll mention real quick, Mekhi Becton out of Louisville. Some people were saying he's first round. I'm going to be straight up with you. I thought he was trash. I thought he was just straight trash. And I thought he was a little better than I expect, or I kind of thought once I got towards the end of the reviews. But honestly, all in all, it's bad. Like, it's bad. 6'7", 369. There's a such thing as being too big. Like, the weight and height are numbers. Like, body types carry weight differently. And he's too big. He's super slow. He gives you nothing in terms of a second effort. He gives you nothing in terms of blocking in space downfield. I don't have a lot that I like about him as a prospect. And so I could see the hype about the build, but I wouldn't go near him anywhere near the first round personally. And then, as I mentioned previously before talking about the Bears, but I'll say it again, one of the guys that I think is going to be a riser but is a little bit under the radar now is Josh Jones out of Houston. 6'7", 310, former basketball player. Really like him. I think he's very close to Andrew Thomas to me. And as far as body type, he reminds me, or has the potential to build out much like Tyron Smith is in Dallas. That's really how he kind of reminded me as far as coming out of college. So we'll see. He's still, not new to football. He's a 3-year starter, but that wasn't his first background. I still think he's really, really good. I think he's really good, and the potential is through the roof. So that's a guy that I definitely got my eye on. So there we go. Those are all the guys. I think if I was ranking my top 3 or 5, I guess, as far as these top tackles, it's tough. I think I keep saying that. Andrew Thomas from Georgia would probably be my number 1. Number 2, honestly, barring injury, Neon would be my number 2. I think he's super impressive. Then from there, I would probably say Jackson 3, Wharfs 4, and then Wills at 5. So that's what I'm going with. All right, so with that being said, we're going to wrap it up with the real grade. If you're new to the channel, the real grade, every year, in every episode, I do a team's draft from the 2017 season or 3 years back. I always say my philosophy is you can't grade a draft till 3 years after the fact to really look at what players become. And that's enough time to kind of see what they are. And everybody wants to grade it at the first night. What grade do you give them? And it's just like, dude, they haven't even played yet. So anyway, Buffalo Bills. We got 2017. Let's see, 6 picks. Out of 6 picks, you have 1, 2, 3 that's still on the team. So half the picks are still on the team. But let's go down the line. So first round pick, you got Tre'Davious White at the back of the first round. Just became an All-Pro this year. Pro Bowler before. I was not a huge fan of him coming out. And I think, I don't know. And honestly, I'm not going to like ill will talk him because I haven't watched his Pro Bowl, or not Pro Bowl, his All-Pro season this year to see kind of what skills and what everything has developed into. But he was a highly touted player, fell a little bit in the draft, and didn't make a whole lot of noise early on. But, of course, like I said, has blossomed into a top defender in the eyes of the league. So, first round pick, but 27, that's a big hit to get an All-Pro. Any pick, really, to get an All-Pro. So then second round pick, you had Zay Jones, who they recently traded to the Raiders this season. He was with the Bills up until this year, but never really did a whole bunch, and was kind of I would say a little bit of a flyer coming out of a small school. Got a lot of late buzz into the process, but didn't really come on that much as a pro, and didn't really do much in Oakland either. So there are some big points to take away from there. Dion Dawkins out of Temple, took him as a guard. He's been their left tackle for a while, still with the team, of course. One of the big reasons for their run game, and so definitely doing things. I would say not a reach, but a premium pick at the time for somebody that people were like, will it translate from Temple? And I think he's done a real good job being one of the more solid tackles out there. So there's that. Nathan Peterman, we all know. And I really like Nathan Peterman in Pitt, but got in a situation where he got some opportunities he was not ready for. We know how that all went, but a 5th round pick. So in a 5th round quarterback, not a whole lot to hold against him. And then you got Matt Milano, Boston College linebacker, who has been a starter since his, not like complete starter, but end up starting games his rookie year. And since then, those last 2 seasons has been a starter for the team. So Matt Milano as a 5th round starter is a huge plus as well. And then Tanner Vallejo, who came out of Boise State, was huge with the injuries. He's been bouncing around the league, but he's still in the league. And so more of a special team or reserve type, but still out there. And that was definitely a flyer too. Like I said, he had a big injury history. So looking at it overall, like I said, you retain 3 of the players that you drafted or have. One that you let go is, well, all 3 are still in the league. One is just kind of a middle of the road receiver. One's a very maligned backup quarterback. And the other one is just kind of a middle of the road special teamer. So none of them became anything crazy. So it's not like you lost anything crazy. But I think Zay Jones does hurt pretty big. But you got some big pluses too. Getting Matt Milano as a starter in the 5th. Dion Dawkins has been a consistent starter. And then getting All-Pro with Tre'Davious, even though it was first round, number 27. So all in all, I think you had a good draft because, again, it's not just about who stays with team. Also, like, did you pick players that can play? And I don't know, a lot of it does balance out. So I'm going to give it a B overall. Like I said, I think they got some big points in certain areas and a couple negatives, mainly with Zay Jones. But I'm going to give them a B for the Buffalo Bills. And as we know, recently in the playoffs for the first time in a little bit. and was a team that people liked this year. They were able to rack up some wins. So there you go. All right, so that's it for me. Go down the comment section. Let me know what you think about the offensive tackle class. Any guys that you like, any guys that I didn't mention. Of course, go to the description section, and there's going to be a link to the reports. And yeah, let me know if there's anybody that you might want me to do video on, because I'm not going to do everybody, but I might do one or two. So anyway, share it around, get the conversation started, thumbs up, subscribe, and thank you for listening.